truths and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on Earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause. Welcome to The Probable Cause. This is a podcast covering the criminal justice system in Allen County, Indiana, northeastern Indiana, and of course the state of Indiana as it pertains. I'm your host, Jamie Duffy, a locally based journalist, and to my left over there is Michael McAlexander. He is the Allen County Prosecutor. Of course, my right hand is back. You will hear her over the cell phone. We welcome her contributions. She knows a lot about the system because of her great loss to homicide in 2016 when she lost her son. Now, as you can see, we have a special guest here today, a very special guest. Her name is Tesa Helge. She is the chief counsel at the Allen County Prosecutor's Office. It goes prosecutor, chief deputy prosecutor, and then chief counsel. And we're going to be talking about that. Of course, her boss is here too, right, Mike?
Yes.
So I would say we're going to mind our P's and Q's, but not really. We'll have a very frank and fun discussion. But first, we got to do the courts like we always do. So, Mike, take it away on the courts, please.
We do have, once again, another murder case going this week. Chief Deputy Tom Shaley is leading the prosecution team with Ashley Skabinski as the second chair. So they're in day 2 of a murder trial. This goes back to, I forget if it was 16 or 17. A woman was killed in kind of 2 homicides kind of connected with each other. A woman was found dead in her home in New Haven, and then a body was found in the river.
Is he being tried for
so weird? I wish I could sit in on that.
Yeah.
That just how they fit all the little pieces of the puzzle together just amazes me.
Well, that's what I was going to ask Mike. Is he being tried for both of those at the same time?
I believe so.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best of my knowledge.
I wanted to say that I will be covering that trial. I do have a request for cameras in the courtroom. I love to get the closings. I've had Tesa on the closings many a time, which you can see on our Facebook page and on YouTube. I didn't know if you realize you're on YouTube.
No.
She's on YouTube.
Great.
Just type in her name, Tesa Helge, and you'll see it. I know the family of Anton Moore, who was the man who was so disrespectfully killed. They just threw his body in a ditch, and it's just awful to think. Dorothy Moore is her name. She lost her brother Bobby about 4 weeks earlier when he was shot in a porch on Avondale Drive. It was too much for this poor lady to bear, and when they did name the accused killers of her son, I interviewed her when I was at Wayne TV, so that would be online too. So anyway, you'll be able to see those. Now, on to Tesa Helge. What we want to do is kind of introduce her because we may have some people out there who want to become attorneys, who would love to become prosecutors. They've seen it on TV. They don't know exactly what happens with that. So Tesa is going to tell us all about her position. So let's just start kind of with your resume. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up on a dairy farm, a little tiny farm in Cadott, Wisconsin, which is a very small town of roughly 1,500 people. Might be up to 2,000 now, very small. So it was I would say about half of my classmates were farm kids. You know, it was a very rural environment with a small school, and I went to the same school with my peers from the time I started kindergarten up until we graduated high school together. So it was a very small town.
How large was your graduating class? Do you remember?
Roughly 65 of us.
Oh, jeez.
Very small. Yeah.
I'm just going to guess you were the valedictorian.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't.
Okay.
No. But I am, you'd not be surprised, friends with the valedictorian, the salutatorian, because we were all, very small groups. So I had a great childhood. I have no complaints. Never really, at that time, I never really knew right away initially what I would do. I was very argumentative. I'd like to argue with people.
Going back to Uncle Vinny here.
Yeah.
My cousin Vinny. Okay.
So I would argue with the boys in my class, my uncles, anyone who would argue with me, really. But
that's cute.
I didn't really know what I would go on to do. So I went to college at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. My parents moved. They sold the farm before I graduated high school, and they moved to Baraboo, which is it's near Madison, about 2.5 hours south of where I was growing up. So I stayed on and I went and started renting an apartment with my sister, and I finished high school, and then I began college. I stayed there. Yeah.
So what did you study in college?
I studied psychology. I thought maybe I'd want to go on in that. I didn't know if I wanted to be a counselor. I knew I liked people. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how. And so I started for psychology, and I really enjoyed that. I did think that, I struggled with the fact that most of psychology, unfortunately, is based on college students' studies of them, because you can't really conduct real experiments. It's harder to do that outside in a real setting. You don't want to subject people to trauma just so you can study their responses, et cetera. So I didn't know, I don't even know what possessed me to, but randomly, when I was, I think, a sophomore in college, I called the prosecutor's office in Eau Claire County. Yep, just called it, and I said, "Hi, I'm Tessa. I would love to come and just be an intern." I did not go through a program. I just cold called them. I have no idea why they allowed me to interview, but I went down and interviewed. And they allowed me to just start volunteering there. So I did. And I also began and got a little job as a clerk at a law firm there too, because I was kind of just wrestling with, would I ever want to be a lawyer? What do I want to do?
Were there any attorneys in your family?
No. In fact, my mom is a first-generation college graduate in my family. She went back to school when I was I think I was about junior high when she started, and in high school when she graduated. So my father didn't, he had not gone to college. I mean, we were farmers, you know what I mean? I grew up very, very humbly, and my parents did not have the money to pay for college for any of us. So my sisters and I, we paid for it ourselves. I worked through and paid for it. Luckily then, the education costs were lower than they are today. So I never lived on campus, and I scrimped and I worked at a group home, worked at different places, and waitress.
This is a great story. So what did you do at the Eau Claire prosecutor's office? What did they have you doing? Typing depositions?
I don't know how I got, again, lucky. I began attending pretrials, and they had a vacancy for a victim assistant, and their victim assistance program was in their prosecutor's office. So they said, okay, well, I don't know why. They said, we're looking to hire someone. They were paying like $17. It was a great income for me, because I had just come as a volunteer, and now they were willing to pay me without a degree. So they said, come be a victim assistant, and I job shared with another person. So I started doing that. And when I did that, I would sit in pretrials with mostly sexual abuse victims. And I remember there was a prosecutor that I greatly admired. She was so good with victims. She was so passionate. She worked so hard. She had 2 kids of her own, and she still, I just remember being very impressed by her. And then I remember sitting in with some prosecutors that I felt like they weren't as child-friendly as I wanted them to be. And I got frustrated thinking, well, you know what? I don't really want to sit in a pretrial. I want to be the one that actually can do something for them.
So that was really the spark. That's what gave you the inspiration.
Yep, it was.
That woman, do you still know her?
No, I did invite her. I invited her when we got married, but I wouldn't have expected her to come because she lived she's up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is a good solid 8-hour drive from here. So I haven't talked to her in a long time, but yeah, you know what? Someday I may reach out to her and just say, I don't know if she's still a prosecutor there or not, but she was very inspirational.
I like the way she pronounces Eau Claire. I'm a francophone and an anglophone, actually. But she doesn't butcher the name of it. So thank you, Tessa, very much for that. Eau Claire. All right. So there you were, and you were a victim assistant. So then what happened? You must have just graduated from University of Wisconsin, which is a great school.
Yeah, so I decided to apply to different law schools, not sure what I would do, if I would go or not. But I got in, I really wanted to stay in Wisconsin and go to a Wisconsin law school because then you didn't have to take the bar exam, which sounded wonderful. They had bar privileges, right? So I applied to, I think I applied to like 5 different schools, kind of all over. I did not get into Wisconsin. I did get into the University of Minnesota, which I was very excited about because that was only about 2 hours from Eau Claire, hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But then I randomly had gotten this, I had no idea where Valparaiso, Indiana was, not ever heard of it in my life. And I got this thing after I took the LSAT that said, well, waive your application fee. And so I said, well, that doesn't hurt to apply, right?
Right.
And I was, again, unbelievably lucky. They gave me an entire scholarship, my whole education, the whole thing, which is astounding, because I had nothing. I mean, I had nothing.
But your LSATs must have been pretty good.
I mean, they were good enough somehow. I don't know. I had good grades. I just got very, very lucky. Unbelievably lucky. So even though my course was Minnesota, or I had been waitlisted at Marquette, which would have been a really expensive school too.
Oh, yes. That's a private school.
Yep. I decided to go to Valparaiso because it was, I think it was free. I mean,
there's less snow in Valparaiso than in Wisconsin, too. I mean,
That is true. Yeah.
So, all right. So you're there at Valparaiso, and what did you think of it? I mean, what was your first impression of Valparaiso? And unfortunately, it has closed down.
Yeah.
And that's why we advocate on this podcast for another law school, and we want it in Allen County. I thought this up last week, Mike. You've got Mauer in Bloomington, McKinney in Indianapolis. We need McAlexander.
Oh, hey.
Okay, the McAlexander School of Law, and
There's a venture.
Indiana University.
We should say Valparaiso University is open. It closed its law school.
Yeah.
Right, very good point. Right, very good point.
It's a very, very great school still. So that was the time of its 2000, at that point, 2004, and we don't really all have MapQuest and all this stuff. So I remember being very intimidated. I moved to a new state by myself. My parents weren't particularly excited I had made that decision. They were hopeful I would be a rural Wisconsin dweller with many children, and instead, though, I was going to go and try and save the world in Indiana.
Bravo!
So anyway, so the school was smaller than the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire had been, but I liked it a lot. The town was really adorable, and I got lucky. I lived in this house this couple owned a house, and next door to it, they owned a rental house. So I got one of the 3 apartments in that house. They were extremely nice people. And it was like 2.5 blocks from downtown, so I could walk. And it was great. It was intimidating, of course. That's what they do on purpose for you. I cut my hair off so I would look very businessy and professional. And I was ready to try and see what I could make of.
What was the first class you took? Was it constitutional law?
I think that was in my first semester. I know there was criminal.
Usually property, contracts,
torts, which I despise.
Civil procedure,
Yes.
torts. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember because my son went to law school, and there was one that he said was really boring, but I don't know whether it's constitutional law or
It was
not.
probably civil procedure.
Civil procedure. I think you're right, Mike. So anyway, you finished Valparaiso University School of Law, and somehow you wound up in Fort Wayne. So tell us how that happened.
So I met my husband in the fall of my first year. I had come with a Wisconsin boyfriend.
Oh.
And so we were just friends. He had a little group. They would meet every week to watch a TV show and make like little food together. So he started inviting me to that. And I was kind of like, I'm not really sure why I'm being invited, but I'm desperate for connections and friends in this new area. So I started going.
I'm sure he thought you were very pretty.
I honestly, God bless his heart. He got what he bargained for there. I don't know. But we began, so anyways, then by the spring of my freshman or my 1L year, it was just not working out long distance. So we broke up, and I started dating Jared. And within a year, we were engaged, and he had gotten so he is the opposite of me. He is a a very much more studious business lawyer. And he had gotten a job offer at a law firm out here. First, he went out to clerk. He clerked our 2L summer. And then they offered him a job. So he said, marry me and move to Fort Wayne. And I said, yes.
And this was a big city for you, right?
Did you say, what's Fort Wayne?
What I said was, really? Wisconsin is kind of where I was thinking about. And he said, oh, you're going to love it. It's just like Wisconsin. It'll be great, you know.
Oh, I mean, it's Midwestern, but wait, was he from here?
He was not.
Oh.
My husband's from Nebraska.
Oh, wow.
He had literally come to Indiana for Valparaiso School of Law as well. So
it's just another reason why it's too bad that it had to close.
I know. It really is. I have nothing but good things to say about my experience there. But anyway, so we moved out here, and I applied for a prosecutor's office job. And at that time, they didn't hire you unless you had passed the bar, or, you know, you couldn't be hired unless you passed the bar and were ready to be licensed. So I interviewed, and I think there was a month gap where I was stir crazy and painted every room of our house while my husband worked. And then fortunately, I got an interview and was offered a job and began as a prosecutor. And that was, yeah.
Well, now what division were you put in initially?
Yeah, at that time, they put everyone into child support. So I got a surprise there because I didn't even know that child support enforcement was part of prosecution. They said, here, you can help enforce support orders. And I said, that's wonderful. What are those? But anyway, so that's where I began, which was actually great. I mean, at the time, it didn't seem very exciting, but it was great. It was a wonderful place to start because there was a lot of people that were new, and we kind of were friends. And the supervisor there, Andrew Schweller, is just so good with new lawyers, so patient. And
he's still there.
He is.
Right.
Still
Andrew
doing
Schweller.
a great job mentoring them. And it's a great place to not, as they lovingly told us when we started, you can't screw up anything too bad here compared to, you know,
we can fix.
Yes.
We can fix anything.
You can fix what you do. And so it was a great place to start. It was just it actually, one of the wonderful skills is it really taught you how to talk to people. And it's weird that that's a skill, but it is. You know, at the point you go to law school, you come out and you think, oh, I'm just going to be writing briefs and arguing at the Supreme Court. But truly, so much of being a lawyer is about being able to talk to people, whether they're witnesses or litigants or, you know, anybody self-representing themselves, victims. And so it was great you actually at that level often got to talk to people because they were representing themselves and you were representing the state.
And it was a very emotional situation too, with trying to get money we did a whole podcast on Title 4D.
Did you? Yeah.
So
I think I told my joke.
The what?
My joke for cocktail parties. What's your job? Well, I deal with sex and money. So.
And I'm sure they shall all stick around, or do they flee? No, we won't go into that. So you were in Title 4D, child support. Then what happened? Did you say, hey, I want to try another division, or how did that work?
Well, I actually just told this story recently at the Warm and Cozy fundraiser, but I am a just absolutely clueless young lawyer wearing a sweater and pants to court on a Friday. And Lori Gray, who was doing the child juvenile sex crimes at that time.
Oh, wow.
She had a trial that morning, and it was a bad case. It was a graphic case with a 2-year-old victim, and she lost her voice. So someone said, well, have Tessa. She'll read the case for you. So she said, oh, just come on, sit down. You know, I can't talk, so I've got it. She had it all scripted out, but literally said, I need you to do this trial. So I sat there in my sweater that was Judge Sims. And I remember she said, just so you know, and again, she's like, just so you know, because she cannot talk. She said, there are no tears in this case. There are only tears because it was that bad. So I met sane nurses in that trial, and it was like, and I had worked with victims. I'd been on the victim advocate side of sexual assault, working with some victims. And at that point in Wisconsin, they had a grant so that they wanted you to spend time with the victims, not just going to court with them, but actually going, like meeting them for coffee and trying to build more of a relationship with them. So I had done that and gotten to know some victims of sexual assault there. So this was like the other side of that, right? Now I was in a position to argue for them. So that was kind of a spark I had. And based on that, I think Lori must have said something really nice, because then Stacy Spieth started saying, hey, come and sit with me and learn, do a trial with me and let's kind of teach
So
you.
do you want to say who Stacy Spieth is?
She at the time was the head of our sex crimes division. She's now with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Well, I thought that name sounded really familiar, but I couldn't tell you exactly why. And so because you're in homicide now, so how long were you there in the juvenile sex crimes? Did I say that right? Juvenile sex?
Yes. So I did. So boy, I mean, it was a long journey. I mean, it was from child support, and then I went to misdemeanor, and then I went back to juvenile sex crimes, and then I went to level 6 felonies, and I went part-time for a time while my children were young. Karen and Mike were very gracious and allowed me to work part-time so that I could be home more with my kids, because that was a hard time. My husband's also obviously a lawyer, and we had no family here. So we were struggling to try and, balance all of that, and it became really hard. So for 2.5 years, I worked 30 hours a week, mostly covering court over in the arraignment calendar and doing level 6s. And then after that 2.5 years, I don't remember why, maybe because we just lost some deputies, but basically they said, well, if we'd like you to come back full-time doing sex crimes, but we're going to have, you have to be full-time because meetings with kids usually occur after they get out of school. So we don't pull them out of school for meetings. So it was the best way to do that. So at that point, then I came back. I was in sex crimes for a while. Tom Shaley eventually was the head of sex crimes, and I worked in his division.
I didn't know that.
Yep. And then when he went to be chief counsel, I got the opportunity to lead that division, sex crimes, did that for a while. And then he was overwhelmed with homicides because it was so many were stacking up, and he was trying to do it alone. And he lovingly asked me if I would be so kind as to leave sex crimes and start working on homicides with him. So I did that. And I think that was about 5 years ago. Something along those lines.
I know, it's like a real team, Tom and Tessa. We should say that Tom Shaley is the chief deputy prosecutor and has done so many homicide cases. And Tessa was often his second, and she's often now the lead prosecutor on it. And then you brought on some other deputies, right?
We're really working on bringing up, we have a wonderful, wonderful bench finally of young, talented lawyers. It's taken a long time just because there have been shortages in lawyers, and especially with losing Valparaiso Law School and other schools. We have such a talented team of younger attorneys that are very willing to learn, so that's what we're trying to do now.
Well, so what do you tell these young attorneys so that they don't go to a better paying job with a big firm or go into, debt collection or whatever it is that, those are my pet peeves. People, what do you tell them? Hey, come work for the prosecutor's office. What's the lure?
I think, there's the poor millennials get a bad rap, right? But one thing I have to absolutely say about them, at least ours, is what they're looking for is meaning. They want meaning. They want to believe their work means something and is valuable. And the wonderful thing is that is what we have to offer, is that you come here and you feel like sometimes as a lawyer, you don't get that. You represent your client, but it's not really about feeling like you went home and you really did something. And
I made a difference.
Yeah, and we have that power.
If we go back to the movie thing, the joke is we wear the white hat. We are there for truth and justice. And to be good at this, yeah, it's a job, but you also have to have a foundational ability to want to do the right thing to help people. And even defendants, you're trying to be fair, you're trying to do what's right. And I think that's part of what people don't understand about prosecutors, that for everyone that is I want to put the person in jail for as long as I can, so much of what we do is crafting, how can I help to rehabilitate this person and provide justice and protect victims.
But I think you also are very well versed in the law, both of you. You know that you do have to be fair.
I mean, that's a fundamental
because a defendant normally has a family too. So you can't just, I think the days are kind of gone, but I could be wrong. I don't know. What about you, my right hand? Didn't you ever want to be an attorney? Because you could have been a very good one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I absolutely wanted to be an attorney, but then I looked into how much work it would take, and I decided to get 2 master's degrees instead.
Was a wrong decision, all right? So anyway, Tessa, let's go back to the homicide unit here. We know it's not for the faint-hearted. You have to deal with autopsy photos. You have to deal with, the worst liars around. You have to deal with some situations that are extremely sticky and confusing. So what comes out of that for you? Why do you feel so empowered doing this one?
Yeah, I think in sex crimes, it's the victim was always my hook. That was why I did it, so that you felt like that you stood up for somebody that was usually a child that just needed, that was going up against the perpetrator, and you felt like, wow, I'm really, when this is all over, the child gets to say, wow, that jury believed me. They know he did this to me. Mm-hmm. In homicide, it becomes more about the family and just the thought of, I think of myself. We all do. Like if someone brutally killed my child, I just cannot even fathom. And then, unfortunately or fortunately, they don't get a choice, though. You are trusting somebody and relying on them to get you justice, and that's hard. That's got to be horrible. I can't imagine that feeling. It's like a doctor, but you can shop around a little for doctors, but it's hard with a prosecutor. In a case, you get given a government attorney who's here to get your justice. And I think for me, it's like, I have always thought about, I want us to be in government the best that we can be, because I don't want it to be about who they're stuck with. I want it to be like they think, you know what, this is really, this is really somebody who's really cares and is trying to get the most out of the case, the justice. It will never bring their family member back. And that's a really hard thing. When I started homicide, and sex crimes too, but especially in homicide, you think, gosh, if I can get that guilty, and we can get that sentence, then their pain will go away or it'll lessen. And I unfortunately don't think that's true. You can speak on that a lot more than I can, but I think.
Yeah, no, it never goes away.
Yeah.
What about the closure?
There really isn't closure ever. I mean, hopefully when I get to heaven, there'll be closure, but there really isn't any closure. Nothing so far has given me closure, and I've tried lots of stuff.
Well, I know that a couple years after you lost, I remember you reading books on what heaven was like. I was like, I'm going to choke up when I'm talking about this. What happens when you die. And
Yeah.
And you were telling me what it was. And I'm sure you're not the only mother who's gone through that, or father. I'm going to say father, too.
And there's not a one-size-fits-all. I think that's the other thing that we have to be open to, that a win in the courtroom for some people may be a validation and may be what they want. I watched the son of Petra last night on television.
The what?
The son of Pietra Nieto.
Oh, yes, yep.
The sentencing, I think it was yesterday.
Perla, yep.
Perla, I'm sorry.
Nope, you're.
And he said that this brought him some closure. But that may be for him, but what we see is everybody reacts differently. Even within the same family, you have some people that are so angry and other ones that are so forgiving. It's like, I think, people's reactions to Charlie Kirk's wife on Sunday saying, I forgive the person. Some people can't do that, or it takes them years. And
totally understandable.
And we're trying to recognize all of that there isn't just some magic way to wave a magic wand and, okay, because we got a conviction. It's just one step in the process. And it's so hard to keep that and meet the needs of each victim.
Another thing I wanted to ask Tessa, because everything Mike has said is true, is when you're gathering evidence, what makes it solid for you?
Yeah, we know Tom's tipping point, especially on self-defense, is can he beat them by 51% of the evidence? What's your tipping point?
I think jurors have changed. Society has changed a little bit. We like science now. It is something that is helpful to have information that comes to us from different sources that are independent. So I like to have, it's really nice to have a witness of some variety. We don't ever usually get, sometimes we get eyewitnesses. Often we don't, because people don't commit, murder in public. Sometimes they do, sadly. But then the combination of some type of DNA that corroborates what we're hearing, or I love cell phone mapping. That's been a pivotal thing for us.
I noticed that.
Yeah, it has been very, very important and helpful. I like that, or
forensic,
something. Yep, anything that can help us. Shell casings when we have self-defense, but if we have ballistics that can come in and tell us, well, you know what I mean, some idea, so that we can use. We present our version of what we think happens, but we have a little bit of corroboration from different directions. I think that's really important.
I think that has changed a lot. When I started, if we had an eyewitness that said they saw it, I can say the cashier at a store that got robbed or something along those lines, we'd file those cases. And now, I don't know that I mean, could we still file them? There's probable cause for it, but will we be successful? That's where we get from juries, where they'll say, well, we believed the witness, but we just needed more. And I don't think the public is as trusting on some of that as they were.
Well, what
if
about
a police
video,
officer,
though?
a police
Ring doorbells,
right.
That's become huge.
It has.
But that corroboration, usually from a different type of source, is necessary now to get convictions. Luckily, because of things like Ring doorbell and DNA. But DNA, I think there have been enough people exonerated through DNA that were convicted on eyewitness testimony that a lot of jurors now are second guessing when an eyewitness says something, unless there's something else that pulls the person in. And that's where, whether it's fingerprints, DNA, Ring doorbell, other evidence, cell phone location is big.
Fingerprints don't seem to be that strong anymore.
We get lucky once in a while, and then we'll get them on a car that we're trying to put the defendant in or something like that. But yes, in general, fingerprints it's not, and we spend a lot of time in trials trying to tell jurors, TV science is TV.
Right.
Just like TV medical is TV. And so trying to help them understand that science, fingerprints are extremely fragile, and we can't just get them off everything. And just like DNA, it is also fragile and very small amounts. But just so that they know, I think we have fantastic, obviously the homicide unit, they give it their all, and they're thorough. They're very, very thorough, and I think that's important. And then having some corroboration, so that, because it is society, it's jurors, and I think we live, there's so much you can just say now, and people understand that. People just say things. We want to show our.
Yeah, we should mention the homicide unit from the Fort Wayne Police Department. That Fort Wayne is where most of our homicides occur, not in the county. They're all doing really well, and I do believe that the homicide unit is still at 100% clearance rate this year.
Close. I think there's one.
That's not solved, but the rest of them, they're phenomenal, and the change.
I think I know which one that is.
Yeah. Okay. Sergeant Hughes' methodology of
captain.
Now captain. Sergeant at the time, but now captain, of changing, putting the resources on it. And I really commend them for giving the resources to that unit, so that they have the ability to put so many hands on deck and into the situation early and really try to.
I've always said it should be a model nationwide, how they just tackle one. They've got them all on there. They're on call. They've got, I think they're up to 11 detectives now, but I could be wrong on that. And when she was saying Captain Hughes, she means Captain Tim Hughes, who started this whole team effort thing so that you work with another homicide detective. And then you've got the rest of the team helping you out. And I think there's a real camaraderie with that homicide team too that I've noticed. So anyway, on to the subject, because I know Tesa herself said she wanted to discuss or address teen violence. And so I put together a few figures. I mean, they're just starting points for whatever Tesa wants to say. We have the Council on Criminal Justice, which is based in Washington, D.C., and puts together statistics. And they said offending has decreased among older juveniles, but increased among younger juveniles in recent years. Without going into too many statistics on that particular one, we have seen them younger and younger. And I think that there's two sergeants, one of whom is still with the gang unit and the other one was, and probably will cycle back into that someday. Mark Deshays and Gary Hensler will tell you that we are in a younger person's cycle right now. It's so heartbreaking when we see these kids that haven't even reached 18 committing homicides. Do you want to say anything about that?
Oh, yeah, it is heartbreaking. It is really heartbreaking. Even to sit there, some people, again, they think, once the jury comes back guilty, we're just celebrating. We're so excited. We send someone to prison for life. But the truth is, a couple trials of these young kids, when that guilty comes in, they break down. They break down sobbing because at the end of the day, they're children and they have done something horrendous that they have to be punished for. But they did not think that through, not at all. And that is just heartbreaking across the board. Like, it is not just that family will never have their loved one back, but that child now, we have wasted all of their potential. They are locked up for life or most all of their life. And it is really, really depressing.
I mean, when they get out, they're going to be, I don't even want to wager a guess, and they've got to be in their 60s, 70s, something like that. Well, here's another one then. Juvenile perpetrated homicides were 65% higher in 2022 than in 2016, from 315 to 521. Compared to other violent offenses, homicide experienced the largest percentage change during that period. We're talking about assaults, robberies, these kind of things. And then the number of firearm-related incidents also has jumped from 16 to 18, 2018. The number of juvenile offenses involving firearms mostly stayed flat. But then from 2019 to 2022, which is the latest year that they have, they're never like right on 2022, 24, or 25. The number of these incidents increased by almost 25%. So you've got not only more juvenile perpetrated homicides, but more of them are using firearms.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The access to firearms for kids, unfortunately, it's just the young gangs in Fort Wayne, we know that they pass firearms around, and when a gun is hot, as it's called, when it's been used for a homicide, then it's just passed, and there's so much availability to guns by young kids, and then the kids, recently I've asked a witness in trial whether she knew her daughter had a gun, and she responded, no, I had no idea. But I mean, these kids are, because there's so many of them have guns, and so many of them believe they need to have guns to protect themselves, and as a result, you end up with a whole bunch of children walking around armed in our city, which is frightening because they are not responsible with guns,
And yet, if you're under 18, you're not even supposed to have one.
You are not, no.
So I wonder, because I'll imagine you think about this constantly. If you had to come up with a solution to that, what would it look like?
Oh, I do think about that constantly.
I'm sure you do.
Because we can't, our system is not designed to prevent crime, unfortunately. It's responsive to crime, So it's like, how do we as a community get involved in this and and turn these kids, and turn it around so that, because I really, what I think about so much is the wasted potential of these children. They're smart kids, they're beautiful lives on all ends, and that potential then is gone. That's something we'll never have in our, we will lose all of the efforts that they could have given our society. So I think it's a community problem, unfortunately, that we're all going to have to be a part of, and it has to start with a lot more monitoring of our kids and what they're doing, who they're with, and and what they're carrying around. I mean, and their social media, because the saddest part about that is that witness who didn't know her child had a gun, everyone else did. I mean, that child was, waving a gun around everywhere else and on social media. So that's a really something that I think it's harder for us as parents. We're not as, we don't spend as much time on social media, hopefully, but we really have to be conscious and watch.
I wonder what the police role could be. Are they allowed to contact a parent and say, hey, I'd like you to know that your underage daughter, who's under 18, is waving around a gun on social media?
They've tried to, the gang unit has tried to be, and in some instances we can charge based on it if we can prove that it's a real gun. There's actual prop guns that they use for their music video. So if we can't,
true.
So we're in a spot where if we can't prove that it's a legitimate weapon, we can't charge on it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something they're really good at, is monitoring social media. We probably need even more efforts in that direction, because it is such a fast moving, gangs put out their rap video to talk about the threats that they're making to each other. I mean, but it's moving so quickly. It's hard to keep track of it. It really is.
And young kids should know that when we're sitting in court and we're covering a murder trial, we see your rap videos. I posted one in one of my stories. I cannot remember which one it was, because there's been quite a few lately, but yes, it was. I think you would have had to listen to it several times. You have to know the lingo that they're using.
Right.
But the gang unit knows that they're listening to it. And I think we forgot to say just how important text messages are.
Yes, they are.
They're amazingly important. And you put that in, I'm going to bring your car back, but we've got to drop off a couple of guns first.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, where is so-and-so? Because we're going to go over and shoot him. That's very damning.
It is.
You're really not, this really happened. I'm not kidding you. You're not thinking it through.
Well, and I think you made a really good point there, that if you're under 18 in Indiana, you can't possess a handgun. I mean, unless you're in a supervised activity or with a parent kind of thing. So whenever a kid has that, it's against the law.
Right.
And I think we have to get the parents to be more vigilant on that. I mean, one thing I noticed looking at the crime stats from Fort Wayne PD that they put out about every week, one of the categories they look at is thefts from cars. And you would not believe the number of people that have guns stolen out of their unlocked cars.
I know.
Why in the hell would you leave a loaded gun in your car unlocked?
There was a certain neighborhood that was getting hit like a couple months ago, really severely. Somebody, messaged me on Facebook, hey, do you know about this? And they tracked it down to the kids, and they were high school students. Most of them were minors. I don't know where it is. I haven't heard from her lately. But yes, I can't believe that they don't lock their cars and leave their guns in there. It's just unfathomable that they do that.
Because again, this is not something that a kid can go legitimately and buy a gun.
Right.
I mean, I know Chicago blames Indiana that people come down here and buy guns legally and then take them to Chicago and sell them. And they blame us for their crime problems. I think it's a bit more in depth than that. But the responsible ownership of guns is very important as to how you use it, how you store it. If it is stolen, report it, that kind of thing, to do as much as we can to track it from that end. But a lot of this with kids, it's going to come down to toss your kids' room.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Know where they hide stuff. Go in and look for this stuff. I mean, kids are very creative, very smart, very sneaky.
They really are. They're very smart.
I used to do it with my boys. Going to tell you that right now.
And I think parents need to have that expectation that kids do carry guns. I think that unfortunately it's a little naivety to believe we want to believe they're not, but I think we do have to believe that, unfortunately that's a solution in their young minds to feeling threatened or scared. And it's just not a legal solution, but it's also a terrifying solution because of the consequences of that.
And that whole thing about they need a gun for protection, it really is upsetting because they do feel threatened.
I know.
And I don't know what we can do about it. They really do. And it's not just teenagers, it's a lot of people who live in communities where they feel there's guns everywhere. And, well, it's one of the verses in my song that I wrote for this podcast. I will ask everyone to listen to that again. So I also have some wonderful numbers from the FWPD. I went over these with Tessa right before we went over it. But the latest stats from the FWPD, Fort Wayne Police Department, for juvenile aid section. Anybody can find this in the annual report. Unfortunately, we don't have the annual report for 2024 yet. It would make it all the more interesting, in my opinion. But in 2021, we had 41 warrants requested for juveniles. By 2023, that number had jumped to 83. That means they're looking for a juvenile, right?
Yes.
Okay. Juveniles fingerprinted in 2021, 11. Now we know that's COVID. Mike brought that point up. But by 2023, 85 juveniles were fingerprinted. And then in 2021, you had not quite 1,200 cases reviewed, which means these cases, I believe, have come to the prosecutor's office. And by 2023, that number had doubled to 2,500. So I just wondered if you wanted to make any comments about those, because those are local numbers. Those are the best I could find.
Yeah, I know the prevalence of juvenile young offenders with guns is up. I know even the number of times they're shooting is up. That's one thing the police department has brought up to us, is that we're seeing so many more shell casings at these shootings. So it just, some of them there's so many more extended magazines out there, which is terrifying. And then they're unloading those. And so you're looking at, shootings with, 10 to 30 casings. Just crazy numbers. So just a terrifying number on gun violence. Yeah. And
well, do you want to say what an extended magazine is? Some people might be listening to this and they're not as familiar with guns as the three of us are.
Well, I think your basic semi-automatic handgun with a clip holds between 6 or 7 bullets and 17. An extended clip is longer and has more bullets. So instead of and emptying the clip very quickly, and it's only got 6 bullets in it or 17 bullets, if it's got 30,
right, then you have so much more. And I just think they're young, they don't think, they're just not, they're not thinking about their decisions and how dangerous that is. At least I hope they're not. Sometimes they are. But I think it falls on us as people in the community and parents to really try to keep track of what's going on with our youth.
Would you ever want to go out and talk to high school kids, like a specific community of them, and tell them how much you care about them? And
absolutely. And I will say, this really sticks to my mind. I went to a meeting. I got fortunate enough to go to a meeting where there's some really articulate young people there, and they said, what we need from you guys is we need a seat at the table so that we can we want more positive things in our lives. We want hope. We want opportunities. We need you to help us find them. And I do think that's very important and something we can do, and some hope that we have. And I think outreach is a huge thing that we could help with. I do. I think, and to let them see, that we're not here we just don't want to lock kids up. That is not, I don't go to bed at night thinking, gosh, I'm so excited I locked up a kid. I want to prevent this from happening. I want them to prevent other kids from dying, taking away from their parents at 15, 16 years old. It is horrible. And prevent these kids from making these decisions that will haunt them the rest of their lives. They will spend the rest of their lives, or most of them, locked up. So that's just,
in Indiana prisons, I get I get messages every week, and those places are horrible. I've gotten videos of what goes on there. And it's just, you don't get the proper medical care. The food is awful. And that doesn't even begin to compare to the daily danger that you are walking through general population. And then if you slip up, you can wind up in solitary confinement, which I personally think is torture, but it goes on and it is dehumanizing. And I know people who've spent years in solitary confinement, so don't do it.
Yeah.
All right? So, what else do we want to talk about? My right hand, what have you got to say about teen violence?
Well, a lot of the fix, or for lack of a better term, for it happens at home. And unfortunately, there are just kids that have crappy home lives. And there's not a lot that us normal citizens can do to help them because they're too far gone. But it's heartbreaking because you see these kids, like the kid got a whole lifetime of prison yesterday. Like, he is barely 18 and he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life.
I know.
That's so sad.
I agree. It's horrible.
Yeah, it really is.
And I
But I
know
think-
Tessa has said she feels terrible about it. And yet what we're trying to do is figure out how we can get the guns out of it, because it's rarely that teens stab each other. It's almost always a gun. That's just my observation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, guns are just too handy. I would call for gun control myself, but you know, yes, let's have some gun control. Mike.
That will only control the people who obey the law.
Well, we better not get into that one.
Well, we have to balance that. I mean, we do have a Second Amendment, and there are many, many, many thousands, millions of legal gun owners that follow the law, that do the right thing. And we've got a law that says these kids shouldn't have guns.
Exactly.
So it's not like if you see a kid with a gun, he's broken the law. So gun control, they're not buying them.
We should ask the sellers.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
that's
saying is
one
they're not
kind of-
buying.
I know.
A 16-year-old is not buying a gun at a
store.
legitimate store.
Right.
So either adults are facilitating that if they're buying new, or they're stealing them, or there's a black market in guns that they're getting a hold of them that way.
Well, Judge Trevino was saying that they can make them at the Maker Lab if they have to.
Well,
Remember when she
with
said
the
that?
3D
Ghost guns.
printer.
Yeah.
Yep. But most of what we're seeing are not ghost guns.
Right. And that's a good thing, thank heavens.
But again, a lot of this starts at the home. I mean, the schools are trying to do things. I know the Peacemaker program that I think Fort Wayne and East Allen are doing has apparently at least reduced violence in the schools. Now, whether that's just taking it outside kind of thing, I don't know.
And don't forget Building Kings.
Yes.
That's Roderick
And
Parker.
Queens.
He is
Yeah.
trying so hard, and he is going directly to the kids who have these troubles. So I would give those two people a ton of kudos. I'm sure if you're out there and you're helping these kids, just please let us know at the probable cause, because we will talk to you and we will.
Well, and the 10-Point Coalition, I
Oh,
think,
yes,
is getting back out
absolutely.
on the streets to also talk to kids as they go along.
And to parents.
But, you know, some of this, it's like so many things, and you hate to blame parents, and especially when you've got extended family that are raising kids, whether they're the grandparents, aunts, uncles, concerned friends. It's a big burden. It's tough to keep track of what these kids are doing. But you need to have some sense of what they're doing online, some sense of what they're doing after school, if they're hopefully still in school. And we haven't even touched on the dangers of drugs and fentanyl and meth and cocaine and all the other things that can mess up kids.
Seems like weed is a big one, in my opinion. If you're young, you can get killed over weed. That was just my.
You can get killed over tennis shoes
Yeah.
and Xboxes. And,
Well, that's true too.
Yep.
and that's another thing of, watch who you associate with, where you put yourself as a kid. I mean, trying to sell your Xbox and stuff, if you're going to do it safely. It's just there are things that you have to use some common sense and be safe. If they feel strongly enough that they need to have a gun to go somewhere, maybe they shouldn't be going to that place.
Well, yeah, but that's like a dad would be talking. It's like, I used to say when my boys, they were a few years apart, would go out that door and say, oh yeah, I'm going to so-and-so's house. I never really knew. But it was a small town, okay, in New Jersey. So, but things happen.
Well, you can track them now, and maybe that's what parents.
Oh
need to be
yeah,
doing.
good point.
Watch-
Parents, start tracking those kids.
Use
Come
your
on.
technology and.
It only costs $25 to get one of those trackers, I think.
Well, you can do,
Put the
there's
app
free
on the phone,
programs,
yeah.
where I know where I can look up where my kids are, and you better believe I do, and I don't let them go to parties, and the poor things, you know what I mean? Because.
Can't even go to parties?
No, none of that. I mean, we got to be so careful. But I think
I
there
know.
is a good positive message of hope. Hopefully what we can do is try to help the kids have some opportunities and see that there's something bigger than shooting each other. Disrespect and gangs. There are opportunities. You don't have to be rich, and have all the world. There's opportunities for them, and hopefully we can help them as community members to see that there are opportunities. Produce something a lot greater in your life than just hang out with your gang and shoot people.
See, now that's from the chief counsel, and she oversees the Division of Homicide. So kids, listen to Tesa Helge. All right, I am going to move on from teen violence and other things because I do have a rant.
Oh boy.
So, and it's not going to last that long. But as you know, this podcast is called The Probable Cause. But the name of the media company is this right here, Maumee Media, as in the river, and you'll see the little river through there. And so, frankly, and it took me a while. You can ask my right hand. I was, what about this name? What about this name? Because public relations firms also use the word media in their title. So there's not a whole lot available out there if you want to use something, right? So when I found out that Campbell Soup, the venerated and celebrated soup company immortalized by Andy Warhol, the artist, was admitting to violating environmental regulations for dumping from their plant in Napoleon, Ohio, into the river, I got super upset because I've written about this before. They admitted that over 6 years ending last year, they dumped 5,400 times, and we're talking about phosphorus. Phosphorus makes the toxic algae blooms in Toledo and Lake Erie, and we contribute to that, okay, by leaky septic systems, the junk that we put on our yards, and also the agricultural runoff. But also, would you eat a fish out of the Maumee River? No, you wouldn't. Would you kayak in the Maumee River? No, because you don't want to get dumped in there. So what I'm saying is the Maumee River, and this is the reason I chose Maumee River. I'm getting worked up about this. I grew up in a very environmentally oriented family. My father was a champion of Greenpeace right when it got started. The Maumee River is shallow, it's polluted, and it's dirty. It needs cleaning up just like other things in our society, all right? Take that as you will. So my question, and this is how I'm going to close right before I remind you where you can see all these wonderful podcasts, is why do we do this to our environment? And why don't we treasure what God gave us? Any thoughts?
Including our youth.
Including our youth. Yes.
Also a gift from God.
A gift from God, and we treasure every single one of you, seriously, every single person at this table. So, for the moment, this has been The Probable Cause. You can find us on YouTube. It's called theprobablecause.com, of course the www in front of it. We have a Facebook page that's dedicated to that called The Probable Cause. You can find these podcasts on Apple or Spotify. And let's see, what else do I want to say? Yes, you could find Tesa Helge on YouTube too, and the Probable Cause page, where she's giving closings, and she is very inspiring to you young people who would want to be attorneys out there, and maybe even someday prosecutors. So for now, this is From the Probable Cause, and we say goodbye. This episode is filmed and edited by Frosty Pictures. The Probable Cause is produced by Maumee Media.
Worried when I crossed the Michigan line, a cop from Steuben County waiting on I-69. A headlamp went out while he pulled me over. Charged me with possession after I rolled down the window. Now that's skunk. Indians a trip when it comes to weed. It's like who doesn't smoke or use gummies? Your grandpa, your brother, your rich friend from school? Hell, throw in the whole courthouse and my attorney too. It's time those assholes change these stupid laws. It ain't worth the paper for a probable cause. Sitting on a bar stool in my usual place, this guy next to me said he was looking for some cocaine. Well, I just sold him an 8-ball with a little piece off for me. But my buyer was a cop? Should've known he was a creep. So I'm a dealer, right? You gotta be kidding. It's a rich man's drug. I just take it because I'm injured. 8 years in Westville with a monkey on my back. There's more drugs in here than you can shake a shank at. One dirty drug test, man, this system's flawed. Undercover screwed me in my probable cause. Street crimes never did me no favors. I'm hooked on Fetty. I'm a junkie, not a felon. Told that son of a bitch on the way to lockup. I can't seem to shake it. I need help, not mocking. What do you want from someone who's been through the system? Drugs all through the house before mom and dad went to prison. Throw me in jail and give me a fine? Someday I'll be dead and away from your kind. Now I'm at the courthouse in front of a judge. Can't say my public defender cares for me much. Crimes are committed on both sides of the law. God help me now with this probable cause. C shift never gets old. Anything can happen when you're out on patrol. You think I'm just eating donuts, man? Give me a break. Nothing on this job is a piece of cake. Lights and sirens activated, this knucklehead wants to chase. Baby mama at the scene just spit in my face. Wife's worried that someday I won't be pulling up at all. You'll read about my killer in a probable cause. She went through my phone and she seen my text. I told her forget it. It was just my ex. She took a swing and knocked me flat. Man, I went wild and hit her back. Judge slapped me with a no contact order. Now she's got the kids and she's staying with her mother. So she started it all and I have to take the fall. You can read my whole story in the probable cause. When I was young, caught a case for dealing and did my time. Yeah, I got a record, but I was doing fine. Running my own business on the southeast side. Yeah, I got a gun. I kept it on hand. Told the cop my reason, thought he'd understand. In this neighborhood, you need some protection. Attorney thought I could get just community corrections, but the judge decided to send me to prison. Can't get ahead no matter how hard I try. Read the probable cause, it'll make you
Whispers
cry.
and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause.